Men of Reddit, what's the most hurtful thing a woman has said to you without knowing it? Story 1. You need to get remarried, BC. You need someone who can raise your children. Said by several female friends who watched acquaintances after my divorce when I became the custodial parent for my 3 daughters and son, ages 4 to 12. They obviously thought men couldn't be good caregivers. Spoiler alert, 25 years later, I am not remarried and have never lived with a woman. Their mother was self-centered and close to absent. All four have been to college, are working, married, engaged, and are close to me. Someone replied, I'm glad men like you exist. OP replied, thanks. What's funny, or maybe weird, is when I read about so many dirtbag men on Reddit, I honestly don't get it. Granted, I am 63, so maybe I am now a dinosaur. Almost none of the men I have known over the years are abusive or selfish. I have known several other good dads with custody and some who were good non-custodial dads despite being pulled through the ringer. And with 4 kids, I have known a lot of their friends pretty well, and 3 are girls who dated. In all of that, I can only think of 2 guys my daughters dated like that. One was selfish and one emotionally abusive and were kicked to the side. And now their husbands are great guys. My daughters do have some friends who have known mean or lazy guys. I am not invalidating anyone's experience, but to me, it still has been the exception rather than the rule. So again, thank you. But all I did was be a decent and responsible person who met my obligations. That should be the norm, and within my experience is mostly the norm. So I don't really feel I deserve compliments. Someone else replied, you deserve so much better than her. I'm glad to hear you and your kids are doing well. They're blessed to have a wonderful father like you. You did such a great job raising them. OP replied, thank you. I did my best but also made mistakes. I was lucky that I had pretty good parents. They also made some mistakes but really made my sister and I priorities. After all, no one is perfect, but they showed me how to do it well. I did have some relationships, but they knew my kids were my kids and came first. Actually, a fair number of women couldn't accept that, and that was their right. Everyone was friendly and got along, but no one but me was responsible for my kids. That remark cut deep enough that I made a decision early on that I would not remarry or live with a woman before they finished college, just to prove I did it by myself. I was always open to co-parenting with their mom, but she barely fit them into her schedule. Now I am 63 and have been an empty nester about 8 to 9 years. I am close with the kids and their families. But at home I focus on my senior dogs and recently adopted kitten. I have no objection to getting married again, but find I am too lazy to date. Lalquini. Story 2. We were not exactly exclusive. This is what she told me when I was dating her for a few months and thought things were going great. Then her friend, who was a good person, told me she was having sex with another person who she knew had a girlfriend, and I asked her about it. Someone replied, Nick, guess she didn't think the dude's relationship was exclusive either. Yuck. OP replied, so there is a little sequel to this story. I remained FB friends with, for whatever reason, and she ends up getting married and having a son a few years later. Out of the blue, she started liking every post I make, and she calls me up crying about how her marriage is failing and expects me to be her emotional tampon. Sorry if that sounded crass. And on and on. So I hear her out. She convinces me to have dinner with her and her friend and tells me that she is trying separation. We have dinner, then we go to get some drinks. I'm being standoffish. And then she is all trying to grab me and be close to me. Of course, I rebuff her advances and leave in short time. She calls me up crying, and I explain that I don't care about her problems because they are hers and of her complete making. Story 3. You'd be perfect if you were taller. I'm 5'5" on a good day. I didn't care about height at all until that happened. It happened when I was 17 in high school and ended up creating a complex that lasted for years. Story 4. You don't have the emotional intelligence to be a father. That was almost a year ago, and it still hurts so much. I realize now that isn't really true, but there's a lot of nights I still think deeply about that comment. Story 5. I wish I could find someone like you. I wanted to say, but I'm right here. But I already knew what she meant, and I also knew if I said anything about it, I'd be called a creep. This experience and countless others is why I absolutely refuse to befriend women I'm attracted to who don't feel the same way. It's done wonders for my mental health. While I am okay with friendship, every woman, with the exception of two, that I liked who didn't like me back but tried to be friends with, was often one-sided and unfulfilling. I'm very good friends with one of them, though. There was a mutual attraction, but our lives were too different to make them work. Her husband is a doll, and I'm glad she's happy. The other one has kids I've become the uncle to. Everyone else, absolutely not. Story 6. Yours is perfect. The big ones hurt. Story 7. Breaking off our engagement but remaining in the same house to co-parent, and a few weeks later asking me stay home with our kid overnight so she could stay at another guy's house. Because we single, she wasn't doing anything wrong, so it shouldn't have been hurtful. Oh, and I didn't cheat or anything. The reason she decided we shouldn't be engaged anymore is because I was spending too much time working building a new business, and it made her feel alone. Story 7. Who knew you'd get emotional when you turned 40? Very derisively. I had just developed dysfunction due to a 10-please dead bedroom that was purely her choice. She liked a once-a-month quickie. She found the fact that 10 years of rejection caught up with me disgusting. Story 8. I was 20 with my first girlfriend. We were watching that movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, and when that iconic pottery scene came on, she said under her breath, so quietly, I'm not even sure if she realized she said it out loud, "That's what a real man looks like." Fucking destroyed me. Story 9. I was 17 and deeply in love in my first serious relationship. I caught my then girl on top of another guy at a house party. I was stunned and literally felt like a knife has pierced my solar plexus. She loudly told me she wasn't with me now and could do whatever she wants. Story 10. A reality of being a modern man is that many women today are absolutely brutal when rejecting you. You got to learn to take the hits because they're coming whether you like them or not. Someone replied, it's because a lot of modern men don't seem to take no for an answer. See that whole choosing the bear thing that was going on recently. So women have to be effusive in their rejections in order to get the message to hit home. Honestly, I think we all need training on how to handle this whole thing. Someone followed up, choosing the bear. If you assume the worst about someone before even getting to know them, what's the point of ever trying to meet anybody? Most men hear that and hear, I'd rather die than be in the presence of a man. It pushes guys to quit dating and become more conservative at the same time. Women hate you, why help them? Story 11. Yes, I worked a week to work up my courage to ask my high school crush out to the prom. I bought both tickets. I reserved a seat at a restaurant. I got the fancy clothes. I got the little flower things you clip on, etc., etc., etc. I got to her house. She answered the door in her pajamas. Apparently, she never intended on actually going. Story 12. When I was 17 or 18, I walked around the corner from a group of girls I'd just been talking to and stopped to tie my shoe. They had no idea I was still in earshot as they discussed and all agreed that I was cute. I was elated. I was riding so high until one of them said, but he has small hands. You know what that means? And they all started laughing. They believed the common myth that height and hand size correlate with penis size. At that time, I didn't know any better either. I was crushed. And these were nice girls, which made it that much worse. From then on, I assumed every woman I met was gauging my penis size by my height, 5'7", and hands. It changed how it took future compliments. Suddenly, a woman complimenting my cleanly trimmed nails felt awkward. When I married and my wife would occasionally compliment my size, I assumed she was just trying to boost my ego. When I took measurements to order properly fitting condoms, I decided to look up actual stats and was very pleasantly surprised by what I discovered. When I shared my discovery with my wife, she was like, seriously, you haven't believed me these 15 years? Such is the power the words of the opposite sex have on a young mind. Compliment freely and disparage only when it's truly, truly deserved. Story 13. Do you act depressed for attention? IDK, how she couldn't have known it was hurtful, but she posed it like a genuine question. She was one of my best friends in the Army. Looking back, though, I should have known she wasn't a great friend when I actually tried to kill myself. and she got upset that another friend called the MPs after I failed and called them breaking down about it. Story 14. I knew in the first month of dating you that we weren't right for each other, but I stayed for 2 years because you were so good to me and made my life easy. She told me this while breaking up with me after she graduated college, proceeded to get married to another guy that same year, and, surprise, surprise, divorced him after he had a tragic work accident that disabled him. Real piece of work. Story 15. You're just too available. She was annoyed that I wanted to spend time with her, didn't flake, didn't disappear for days at a time with friends, didn't treat her bad, made me feel like being into somebody was bad. Anyhow, she was an idiot and legit the worst sex I've ever had. She didn't do anything. Got mad when I dumped her. Story 16. You're so wonderful, so perfect. You're like someone was pulled from my dreams. I wish I could be the one. My ex 3 days ago, after she told me that she wanted a polyamorous relationship, this wonderful woman soothed my soul like no one had before. I really wish I was good enough to be her one and only. Story 17. Very long story short, she suggested an open marriage. We had done a MMF threesome a few years earlier, and it wasn't an issue, so I really didn't think it would bother me. But it did for a lot of reasons. But I was trying to work through my insecurities. One day after she went and saw her boyfriend, she came home and we had sex. Afterwards, she was acting a little distant, and I asked her what was wrong. She said that, going forward, she didn't want to have sex with me on the days she had sex with him. She said it made her feel weird and unfaithful to both of us. I don't really know what she was trying to resolve, but it told me that this wasn't an us thing anymore. She was doing it completely for selfish reasons. I couldn't be around her the rest of the day. We didn't stay together much longer. Story 18. I'm dealing with a lot of things in my life. I'm not selfish enough to drag you down with me. I know there aren't many guys like you around. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. I know you wanted to love me. Ex-situationship from a couple months back, I fell hard for that girl even though she was a self-aware walking red flag. She still visits me in my dreams, and remembering those words at 3 a.m. cuts me like a knife. Story 19. Your dick will never be as good as new dick. She was drunk and apparently didn't remember saying it, but I never forgot. I didn't stick around long after that. Story 20. When a woman, my therapist at that time, said this regarding being chronically sexually assaulted and abused as a 3.5-year-old by my 14-year-old babysitter, what she did was wrong. But in writing a new narrative for your experience, given she was a girl and you were a boy, surely you can find some pleasure in it. That last story was insane. The things people say because they think it's acceptable baffle me. That concludes today's stories. If you like stories like these, please make sure to like and subscribe for more. If you have any opinions on these stories, let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you all enjoyed today's story time, and I hope to hear from you all soon.